Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. The Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network says around 40% of partnered women in Kenya have experienced some form of sexual violence in their lifetimes. Is TikTok on its way out in the United States? The House passes a bill that would force TikTok to separate from its Chinese owners. Will the Senate follow suit? And a new VOA documentary chronicles the challenging and inspirational journey of Robert E. Jackson. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin with the unrest in Haiti, where gang violence has plunged the Caribbean country into chaos. The unprecedented level of mayhem is dramatically increasing humanitarian needs across the country. Prime Minister Ariel Henry is stepping down in a bid to stop the spiraling violence that has left public services in disarray. Gangs who now rule much of the capital, Port-au-Prince, have launched a series of attacks on police stations, prisons and other infrastructure. Kenya says it is pausing its plans to lead a multinational police mission backed by the United Nations. Meanwhile, the European Union is making a major humanitarian donation to the beleaguered nation.
So the European Commission has today allocated 20 million euro of humanitarian aid to Haiti, where an unprecedented level of gang violence is dramatically increasing humanitarian needs across the country. The funding will help humanitarian partners to address the most urgent needs of the population in terms of protection, food assistance, nutrition, water, sanitation and healthcare.
That was Balaz Ujivari, the European Commission spokesman. Now to Nigeria, where the information minister says President Bola Tinubu has ordered security forces not to pay a ransom for the release of more than 250 students seized by gunmen last week.
Government is not taking any excuses. The president has directed that security agencies must, as a matter of urgency, ensure that these children and all those who have been kidnapped are brought back in safety, and also in the process to ensure that not a dime is paid for ransom.
Relatives say the kidnappers have demanded a large payment for the return of the students abducted from the school in Kuriga village in northwestern Kaduna State. The mass kidnapping in Kaduna State and another in the northeast came almost 10 years after Boko Haram militants triggered a huge international outcry in 2014 by abducting more than 250 schoolgirls from the Chibok High School in the northeast. The Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network, or RAIN, says around 40% of partnered women in Kenya have experienced some form of sexual violence in their lifetimes. 15% of those experienced it under the age of 18. While progress is being made against sexual violence in Africa, judicial protocols and laws remain a persistent barrier to women seeking justice. VOA's Anthony Labruto spoke to Kanga Rasi, a Kenyan High Court advocate who is working to end childhood and female sexual violence through survivor advocacy.
Sexual violence remains high across Africa. While progress is being made to address and prevent traumatic experiences, there are calls for changes in the judicial systems to improve the legal process. As an advocate in Kenya's High Court, Kanga Rasi studied the law on sexual violence against children. She says most victims are not aware of the laws meant to protect them.
Because as lawmakers, we know the rights, we know what the laws entail, but now for the community, most of the people are not aware about the laws. So when it comes to implementation, it becomes so hard. The sensitization hasn't really been done in terms of what laws apply where, which laws are going to cover certain areas. So that has been a big issue.
Along with her court advocacy, Rossi works through the Brave Movement, a worldwide collective to end childhood sexual violence. She leads community seminars educating people on their rights within Kenya's legal framework.
And you're speaking with the community to find out what is happening, what are the current laws that you currently know, what are the issues which are on the ground and that you really are what are the current issues that you're facing on the ground, and how can we assist you.
Rossi says change is happening, but it has been slow.
Law in Kenya, around the legal work a lot has really happened, and a huge one was the Children Act. And the Children Act 2022 was passed recently, and it has now incorporated some of the nuances that the 2001 Children Act didn't have. Recently, we've also had one of our judges, the Chief Justice, launching the sexual-based gender violence courts, which came up as a policy that emanated from one of our laws.
Kenya's Chief Justice, Martha Koome, created additional courts throughout the country, providing resources so survivors can find justice faster than they would in a normal court.
My specific reason is sexual violence. It's a personal, for me, it's more of a personal attack. And even more so when you're attacking children, people who do not have an avenue to per se speak, or they're just in their process of learning new things. So there's that aspect of dignity, there's the aspect of shame, and you are also curtailing what they would have been.
Through her work with the Brave Initiative, Rossi hopes to inspire more survivor-centered conversations around gender and sexual-based violence in Kenya and throughout Africa. Anthony Labruto, VOA News, Washington.
Malawi's Ministry of Health says 35,000 backstreet abortions were carried out in 2022 and 2023. These unsafe procedures are just one reason support for abortion rights has increased in recent years. Chimwemwe Padatha has more from Lilongwe.
It has been 3 years since Malawi's parliament rejected a motion to even debate liberalizing abortion law. The existing law, which allows abortions only if the life and health of the mother is at risk, has resulted in thousands of women like Harim Shaibu experiencing complications from backstreet abortions.
A mixture of herbs together with soap was inserted in my vagina. A few hours later, I started bleeding, and that is how I lost my pregnancy.
Malawi Ministry of Health admits statistics indicate that between 2022 and 2023, 35,000 unsafe abortions were carried out, leading women to seek post-abortion care in government health facilities.
We hear reports that people are inducing abortions on themselves, which tend to have a lot of complications. In addition to anemia, they also have, let's say, ruptured uteruses. In addition to that, they also have sepsis, whereby they tend to develop infection in the uterus or the entire reproductive system.
Women's rights advocates are continuing to push for abortion law reform that would expand the right to terminate a pregnancy. A bill would allow abortion if there is a possibility of harm to the mental or physical health of the woman, and in cases of incest, rape, or sexual assault. Dr. Matthew Zingwane, the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Health, says the current law is putting lives at risk.
Our concern is the deaths that are happening among us women in this country. And women are dying. They are dying when actually our hospitals can save their lives. Now, the point is, should we just let our women die when actually we can do something?
When the bill was originally announced in 2016, religious groups held mass demonstrations in protest and remained staunchly opposed to any liberalization of abortion laws.
For the side of the faith leaders, there was still a lot of resistance. So that's why we treated and started resistance organization. As I'm talking now, we are still doing this advocacy, this campaign.
Proponents of the bill are conducting door-to-door education in remote areas on the dangers of unsafe abortions as they push for Parliament to take up debate. Chimwemwe Padatha, VOA News, Lilongwe, Malawi.
The U.S. House of Representatives have passed a bill that would force short video app TikTok, used by about 170 million Americans, to separate from its Chinese owner ByteDance or face a ban. But as VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson reports, the bill faces significant criticism about restriction of free speech and may not pass in the U.S. Senate.
After years of concern about data privacy on the popular social media app, U.S. lawmakers took a key step Wednesday, calling for TikTok to separate from its Chinese parent company, ByteDance.
Today, we send a clear message that we will not tolerate our adversaries weaponizing our freedoms against us.
With significant bipartisan support, the bill addresses concerns TikTok is a national security threat.
Americans need to ask themselves whether they want to give the Chinese government the ability to control access to their data, whether they want to give the Chinese government the ability to control the information they get through the recommendation algorithm, and whether they want to give the Chinese government the ability to leverage the data.
The bill is passed.
TikTok has denied those allegations, calling the House bill a ban. The bill's co-sponsors push back against that claim.
Our intention is for TikTok to continue to operate, but not under the control of the Chinese Communist Party.
China condemned the vote Tuesday.
The U.S. has not found any evidence of TikTok threatening national security. It has never stopped going after TikTok.
And many U.S. lawmakers and civil liberties groups say singling out the app is unfair and limits Americans' rights to free speech.
Any ban on TikTok is not just banning the freedom of expression. You are literally causing huge harm to our national economy.
The TikTok legislation has revived the debate over data privacy and personal freedoms.
There are bigger issues taking away from the American life than TikTok. I mean, people can't afford groceries, and we're concerned about a social media apps.
Security for all of the platforms are just, they're under scrutiny right now, and I think for good reason. I don't have a lot of trust in the platforms and in the information that's provided these days. I'm just very concerned about the authenticity.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said committees would consider the bill, which could face significant legal challenges.
The U.S. government would have a very, very difficult job of convincing a court that this ban is both narrowly tailored enough to advance this government interest of data privacy, but then also that there are no less restrictive measures that the government could have taken.
President Joe Biden has said he will sign the bill into law if it passes the U.S. Senate. The Biden campaign joined TikTok earlier this year to reach out to younger voters. Catherine Gibson, VOA News.
As we've mentioned, the House on Wednesday passed a bill that would lead to a nationwide ban of the popular video app TikTok if its China-based owner doesn't sell. Lawmakers acted on concerns that the company's current ownership structure is a national security threat. For more insight, VOA's Paul Ndiho joins us live from Capitol Hill. Hello, Paul. Tell us what this means moving forward.
Thank you, Esther. Certainly, this is a very important decision from the U.S. Capitol. Lawmakers contend that if ByteDance, the parent company that owns TikTok, doesn't divest from here, the United States, they are going to ultimately ban TikTok from here. But what does that mean? It means that they have given it an opportunity, at least 6 months, to comply to that ban. And now that this bill has passed in the House of Congress, it's going to proceed to the Senate. And if Senate can overwhelmingly replicate what was done in the House, chances are that President Biden will sign it and it will be codified as law here in the United States. So that means that if they have not divested by then they'll be banned from the United States.
So how are young people reacting to this news?
Mixed reactions, Esther. You think about a lot of young people using TikTok for all sorts of things. There are people who produce content that pays them money. People have started small businesses on TikTok that have mushroomed into startups that are generating millions and millions of dollars for these young people. You have TikTok that allows them the opportunity to express themselves. There are people who think that banning TikTok here is like trying to silence them, gag them from expressing themselves. So there are those concerns. There are people who think that this is politically motivated. There are people who look at it as an age gap issue. Most of the legislators are in that age range where they cannot relate with what is on TikTok. And when you think about it, TikTok's majority, or the most important people on TikTok are 12-year-olds to 30-year-olds. So when you look at that age gap, there is...
Right. Paul, so you are a TikTok user. So what more can you tell our audience about this social media app?
Certainly, I've used TikTok several times. I've been on the platform for about 2 years, and incredible audience. You post something there, it's something that you don't see anywhere. For example, you cannot replicate what you do on TikTok on other social media platforms. Once it opened its doors in 2017, TikTok just blew out of proportion. Wherever you go, anywhere you go. Today, they talk about almost 2 billion users, daily users. That's a huge leap compared to what it was when it opened up in 2016. It was in the millions, but now you're talking about 2 billion. So there is also that scare from other social media sites that TikTok could actually take away that audience. That's why you see them pushing harder Congress here in the United States, especially the big social media giants here, trying to tap into that market as well.
I'm sure we'll be back talking about this after this grace period of 6 months runs out. Paul, thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.
Viewers, Paul Ndiho reporting from Capitol Hill. Still to come, we'll tell you about Frame of Hope, a new VOA documentary that chronicles 1 month's inspirational journey. Stay with us.
A group of 12 women are recipients of this year's International Women of Courage Award. 3 of them are from Africa. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will introduce you to Agatha Atuhaire, Fatou Balde, and Rabah El Haimad, 3 women who have demonstrated remarkable courage and determination in advocating for the rights of fellow women. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
When it comes to the entertainment business, it does not get any bigger than Disney.
Leaving an indelible print on networks including BET, ABC, and CNN.
Robert has always been about helping people.
If somebody tells you that there's no bias in the industry, they'd be lying.
Robert takes any and everybody that works for him under their wing.
And we had a pretty young staff at BET. They were very talented. I think the average age back then was in and around 25 years old.
Giving young people opportunities, helping them to discover pathways.
Every day I try to take advantage of being here on Earth and doing something positive because I know I was given another chance.
In other news, the Gabonese government says at least 9 people, including 4 teenagers, drowned following exceptionally high sea tides. Rescuers found the victims' bodies on beaches by the capital, Libreville, according to the Interior Ministry. Mali's ruling junta is imposing financial sanctions on 2 jihadist leaders and 4 heads of the Tuareg separatist rebellion, according to a document seen by AFP. The 6 men have a long history of armed involvement against Mali. All were accused of acts of terrorism and criminal conspiracy. And South Africa's Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor says citizens who fight in the Israeli armed forces or alongside them in Gaza will be arrested when they return home. South Africa recently accused Israel of genocide at the United Nations Top Court. Some 2,000 white rhinos bought from a private breeder are being prepared for life in the wild under a plan by a South African NGO that could boost the world's wild southern white rhino population by 15%. David Doyle explains.
750 rhinos. At an undisclosed location in South Africa's northwest province, these rhinos are being prepared for life in the wild. That's under a scheme by conservation NGO African Parks to rewild 2,000 captive-bred white rhinos. It's a move that could boost the world's wild southern white rhino population by up to 15%. African Parks project manager Donovan Juice said the aim is to rewild around 200 rhinos per year over the next 10 years to various protected areas across Africa.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime de-risking effort from a conservation initiative at scale that's never happened before. So I think for the species, it's a massive opportunity.
The rhinos were bought from private breeder John Hume. He sold the animals because of the high cost of protecting them. Poaching remains a severe threat in South Africa. 499 were poached in 2023, according to government data, an increase from the year before. Rhinos are targeted for their horns, which are in demand in East Asia for traditional medicines and jewelry.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Frame of Hope is a new VOA documentary that chronicles the inspirational journey of Robert E. Jackson, founder of B-Roll Media and Art, as he overcame a challenging upbringing in Washington, D.C. project. Robert found his way to the Navy, where he explored photography and overcame drug addiction. This film not only explores his personal triumphs, but also his significant contributions to fostering diversity and inclusion within the media landscape. Let's watch a short clip of the documentary.
Robert has always been about helping people as long as I've known. He's helped everybody who I've known who followed me up through Black Entertainment Television.
If somebody tells you that there's no bias in the industry, they'd be lying.
Robert takes any and everybody that works for him under their wing, and he will talk to you. What I love the most is that he would talk to you on your level.
And we had a pretty young staff at BET. They were very talented. I think the average age back then was in and around 25 years old.
I've had a lot of opportunities. I've had a lot of experience, and I've done a lot of things. How can I pass what I have on to youth? Because I particularly think you have to be of service in some area. The best way I can be of service is to give back to the youth with not only the experiences that I've had in life, work experiences and life experiences.
We launched the Jazz Channel, which was pretty much exclusively jazz, but we obviously had interviews. So we did 40 concerts per summer with all of the top jazz musicians. And of course, he was instrumental in all of that.
So whenever I get discouraged or whenever I feel that I just can't do this, I reflect back on that moment when I had to fight to be here. And every day I try to take advantage of being here on Earth and doing something positive because I know I was given another chance.
Now, for more perspective on a VOA exclusive documentary, Frame of Hope, the producer and director of the project, Sims Lumami, is here with me in studio. Hello, Sims.
Hey, Esther.
Now, what seems to have struck you most about Robert's journey?
Robert's journey, I was attracted by him. First of all, I'll go back how I met him. I met him through his non-profit organization where I used to do volunteering work. But what's more attractive is the way he grew up. He grew up with a lot of challenge, with a single mother, and then he was dyslexic. So. And then that area, before the civil rights movement, so Robert didn't have a lot of challenge of as a school system. He was exposed to drugs, And then his exit was to join the army.
Wow. What other challenges that did he talk about growing up, in Washington, D.C.?
The challenge was the school system. He didn't have the right support of the school system which as a dyslexic person, they didn't have the right, the platform for kids like Robert. So he had that challenge, reading and all those stuff. And then after that, he was exposed to drugs. So growing up with a single mother, so his mother didn't have time for them. He was always at work. He was working day shift and night shift. So it was tough for him.
So how did he turn his life around?
To turn his life around, he was his whole solution was to join the army, the Navy. So it was from the Navy where he found opportunity to learn photography. And after he learned photography, he retired for the army, and then he pursued his school education. And then from there, he started his media career.
And talking about the media career, what was his contribution to the media industry, especially to black journalists and the black community?
So Robert, he pushed to hire more women to some technical position. He gave opportunity to a young black, to a young African. So I remember he told me one time he hired one gentleman. People come from African-speaking French country. So we have, like myself, I came from a speak country. So a gentleman didn't know how to speak English, but Robert gave him an opportunity to do camera work, and then the gentleman lost his job because he didn't understand the technical language about how. So they used to tell him to tilt up the camera or to pan left and right. The guy didn't, and then they fired the guy the same day. But Robert didn't lose hope on the guy, so he gave him opportunity to do some editing, some other opportunity. That was what was the contribution of Robert.
And what is he doing now in his retirement? He's still working on the side?
No, Robert still help a young adult who has some challenge. People cannot afford media or afford education because, multimedia is very expensive. So he has a non-profit organization where he helps a young adult from 10 to 20 years old with all the media production.
Thank you so much, Sims, for working on this documentary.
Thank you.
Sims Lumami is the producer and director of the VOA exclusive documentary, Frame of Hope. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.